Pick one of my girls, human. He pointed at the ugliest one. But she wasn't what they thought. The great hall of the alien palace glowed with cold silver light. Tall crystal pillars reached toward the ceiling, and the air shimmered with strange energy. Human soldier Elias stood before the alien queen, his hands behind his back, his eyes calm, though his heart raced like thunder. The queen of Velara sat on her throne, tall and radiant, her skin pale as moonlight, and her eyes burning like stars. Around her stood her daughters, each one breathtaking, their beauty sharp enough to wound, their expressions full of pride and cruelty. The queen's voice echoed through the chamber, smooth but cold. "So this is the human who thinks he can represent his kind," she said. Her lips curling, pathetic creatures, soft, emotional. Ruled by weakness, her daughters laughed softly. The sound like glass breaking, but Elias did not flinch. He stood straight, meeting her gaze, his human uniform torn and dusty from the long journey through the alien deserts. The queen leaned forward. "Human, your people beg for peace. Yet they offer nothing of value. Tell me, why should I not destroy your world and take what I desire?" Elias replied quietly, "Because we believe even your people can understand something greater than war." A ripple of surprise ran through the room. The aliens whispered among themselves, as if shocked by his calm. The queen's laughter filled the hall, dark and powerful. "Greater than war? Very well, human. Let us play a little game." She rose from her throne, her gown flowing like liquid starlight. "Before you stand my daughters, 7 of the most perfect beings in this galaxy, each strong, each flawless, each bred for greatness." Her eyes glimmered with challenge. "Pick one of my girls, human, if you can make her love you. I shall spare your world, but if you fail, your entire race will burn." The daughters stood proudly, their beauty almost painful to look at, their golden eyes full of amusement and scorn. Elias looked at them one by one, tall, perfect, graceful, their alien skin glowing faintly with biolite. But at the far edge of the line, half hidden in shadow, stood one girl who did not lift her head. Her skin was marked with strange scars, one of her eyes faintly dimmer than the other. Her hair not shining, but dull like ash. She seemed fragile, small, and silent. Her hands clenched together, as if afraid to be seen. The queen noticed Elias's gaze and smirked. "That one? She is my shame, a failure of creation, not worth your glance." But Elias stepped forward, his voice steady. "Then I choose her." The hall went silent. Even the air seemed to freeze. The daughters gasped, laughter breaking out after a few seconds. Cruel and mocking, the queen tilted her head, curiosity flashing in her eyes. "You would choose the ugliest among my children? Why?" Elias replied simply, "Because I think she's more than what you see." The queen's laughter turned cold again. "So be it, human. May your foolish heart be your downfall." She raised her hand, and the guards stepped forward, surrounding Elias and the chosen girl. "Take him to the guest chambers. Let him learn what his choice truly means," she ordered. As Elias walked beside the girl, he could feel the weight of 100 eyes on him, whispering, laughing, judging. The girl finally looked up at him for the first time, her voice barely a whisper. "You shouldn't have chosen me." Elias smiled gently. "Maybe not, but I did." She turned her face away, hiding the faint light of tears that caught the silver glow of the hall as they walked through the corridors. Elias noticed how the palace walls seemed alive, humming with soft alien energy. The servants bowed to the girl, but their eyes carried disgust, their words sharp and mocking behind her back. When they reached his chamber, she stopped and said quietly, "You will not last long here, human. My mother does not forgive kindness." Elias nodded. "Then I will not waste it." For a brief second, her eyes met his, and something flickered there. Not weakness, but something deeper, hidden pain mixed with strength. In the queen's throne room, she watched through a glowing crystal, a small smile forming on her lips. "Let him see what pity brings," she murmured. Her voice like poison in silk. Her advisor asked, "Shall the first prepare the order, my queen?" The queen nodded slowly. "Yes, but let him play his little game first." The human heart always breaks on its own. That night, as Elias sat alone in his chamber, he could hear faint sounds from the garden below, alien music, soft laughter, the cruel world he had stepped into. He looked up at the twin moons beyond the crystal window and whispered, "If I fail, earth burns, somewhere beyond the palace walls." Lyra, the girl he had chosen, sat alone under the alien stars, her hands glowing faintly as if she carried a secret light she dared not show. She looked toward his window and whispered to herself, "Why did you choose me, human?" And from the shadows, a silent figure moved, one of the queen's guards, recording every word. The queen's voice echoed from a hidden communicator. "Watch them closely." The part ends with the queen's chilling whisper. "He will learn that beauty is power, and that love is weakness." If you're enjoying this story so far, make sure to subscribe to HFY Sci-Fi and stay with us till the end. The real twist is yet to come. The morning on Valara began with a strange red glow. The alien sky burned like liquid fire, and Elias woke to the soft hum of energy walls around his chamber. He had not slept much. The queen's laughter still echoed in his mind, mixed with the haunting image of the girl he had chosen. Her name, he remembered, was Lyra, the ugliest daughter, the one the court called a mistake. Yet there was something about her eyes, something gentle and human, though she was not of his kind. A soft knock came at the door, the sound barely there. When Elias opened it, Lyra stood outside, her silver-robed doll, her hair falling unevenly across her face. She did not look up. She simply said, "The queen ordered me to show you the palace." Her voice flat, emotionless. Elias nodded, following her through endless hallways made of glass and living vines that pulsed like veins. The aliens they passed stopped to stare, whispering behind their long fingers. "Look, the human walks with the broken one said. He chose her out of pity." Another laughed. Elias ignored them, but Lyra's hands trembled as she walked faster. Wanting the tour to end, they entered the Garden of Lights, a place where flowers sang softly, their petals glowing blue and green. Lyra paused there, her expression softer, though still guarded. Elias said quietly, "It's beautiful here," Lyra replied. "Beauty means nothing if it hides cruelty." Her words hung in the air, heavy and sharp. Elias wanted to ask more, but she turned away. He noticed scars along her neck, faint but real. He realized they were not accidents. Someone had done this to her. Maybe her own people. That evening, there was a royal gathering in the main hall. The queen announced a feast to welcome the human guest, her smile full of false warmth. Daughters and nobles surrounded Elias, asking strange questions about humanity. But their tone was mocking, their laughter cold. Lyra sat far away at the end of the table, silent, ignored, her plate untouched. Then the queen clapped her hands. "My daughter shall perform the dance of perfection," she declared. One by one, the alien daughters rose, moving with inhuman grace, their bodies glowing with elegant light. The hall filled with applause. The queen beamed proudly. Finally, her gaze fell on Lyra. "And you, my failed child, will you not dance for our guest?" The hall grew silent. Lyra froze. Every eye turned to her. She whispered, "Please, mother, not tonight." The queen's voice cut like a blade. "Dance." Lyra stood, trembling, her steps unsteady. Laughter rippled through the hall as she tried to move gracefully, but her body shook. Her scars catching the light, someone shouted, "She looks broken," and another said, "She's Shamus the Queen." Elias couldn't stand it anymore. He rose, crossing the room. The guards stepped forward, but he ignored them. Reaching Lyra and taking her hand, "I'll dance with her," he said. Gasps filled the air. The music stopped. The Queen's eyes flashed with fury. Elias didn't care. He held Lyra's trembling hand and moved with her slowly. Gently, for the first time, her steps steadied. The crowd whispered in shock. The human and the flawed daughter moved in quiet rhythm under the alien lights. When the music ended, Elias bowed slightly. Still holding her hand, he looked at the Queen and said softly, "Maybe perfection is not always what you think it is." The Queen's face hardened, her voice like ice. "Enough." The guards escorted him away, but before leaving, Elias turned and saw something new. Lyra's lips curved. Just slightly, the smallest, faintest smile that night. The palace buzzed with gossip. Servants whispered, nobles argued, and the Queen's fury spread like fire. "How dare he touch her?" one alien hissed. "The human is dangerous," another warned, but alone in her quarters. Lyra touched her hand where Elias had held it, feeling warmth she didn't understand. Hours later, when the lights dimmed, she walked quietly to his chamber. Elias looked up from the window as the door slid open. Her eyes glowed faintly in the darkness, filled with confusion and something fragile. She said, "Why did you do that for me, human?" "You made them hate me more," Elias answered softly. "Because they already hated you. And I couldn't watch it." Lyra looked at him for a long time, her expression unreadable. Then she said, "You don't understand. They call me cursed. I was born wrong. My mother tried to erase me, but I lived." Her voice broke, her scars catching faint light from the stars outside. Elias took a step closer but stopped, letting silence fill the space between them. "You are not wrong," he said gently. "You are just different." Lyra shook her head. "Different means broken here," Elias smiled sadly. "On my world, it means special, for the first time." Her eyes softened completely. Something inside her cracked open, not pain, but a strange warmth. Before leaving, she whispered, "You shouldn't be kind to me. Kindness never ends well here," Elias replied. "Maybe it's time someone tried anyway." After she left, the Queen appeared on a hidden screen in her private chamber, her eyes narrow and full of hatred. "His words are changing her," she said to her commander. The commander bowed. "Shall we end the human, my queen?" "Not yet," the Queen answered coldly. "Let him believe his kindness matters, and then destroy him before it spreads." Outside, in the silent halls of the palace, Lyra stopped, feeling the strange pulse of fear deep inside her. She didn't know yet that the Queen had already set a plan in motion, and she didn't know that Elias's small act of courage had awakened something ancient within her, something that could save or destroy them both. As the twin moons rose above the palace, Elias whispered to himself, "Whatever they've done to her, I'll find the truth." And somewhere deep in the shadows, unseen eyes watched them both, recording every move. The night was quiet, but the future had already begun to tremble. Days passed inside the shining halls of the alien palace, but the atmosphere had changed since the night of the dance. Every glance Elias received from the alien courtiers carried venom. Every whisper turned sharp when he entered a room. He had humiliated the Queen without realizing it, and yet he felt no regret for the first time. Lyra walked beside him without hiding her face, though her eyes still carried shadows. They spent their mornings in the Garden of Light, where the plants glowed softly like living lanterns. Elias tried to learn their strange customs, their language, their art. Lyra watched him curiously, her silence slowly turning into questions. She asked about Earth, about oceans, about rain, things she had only seen in holograms. Elias spoke simply, describing sunsets and rivers, the smell of wet soil after storms. Lyra listened like a child, hearing a story for the first time. Sometimes she smiled, though it was faint, fragile, like a spark in the dark, but not everyone found their closeness amusing. The Queen's spies followed them at every step, unseen drones hovering behind vines, silent as ghosts. Rumors spread that the human was casting a bonding curse on the broken princess. And in the court halls, some of the Queen's daughters began to whisper dangerous things. The human corrupts her mind, one said. He makes her forget what she is, another added. The Queen should end them both before it spreads. One afternoon, Lyra led Elias through a hidden corridor behind the royal archives. The passage was narrow, carved from old stone instead of crystal. Older than the palace itself, this place, she whispered, was built long before my mother became queen. She pressed her hand to a glowing sigil on the wall, and a door slid open, revealing a vast chamber full of ancient alien carvings. The walls told stories, winged beings glowing with light, hands joined with humans from distant stars. Elias stepped closer, shocked to see familiar shapes, old human writing, carved beside alien symbols. How is this possible? He asked. Lyra's expression grew heavy. Our people once shared the stars with yours, long ago, but my mother erased that truth. Elias turned toward her. She erased it? Why? Lyra's voice trembled. Because compassion made us weak. She said, we were created to feel. But she wanted a race that obeyed, that never cried, that never loved. Her eyes dimmed. I was born different. I could feel too much. I could heal others with my touch. She called it a flaw. Elias finally understood the fear behind her eyes. The sadness she always carried. Lyra wasn't just unwanted, she was forbidden. Suddenly, a sharp sound echoed from above. A metallic screech. Lyra gasped, pulling Elias back. Just as an energy spear struck the floor where they stood, 3 royal guards descended from the shadows, their armor glowing blue. The Queen commands your return. Traitor, one hissed. Elias stepped in front of Lyra, drawing the blade he carried from his human gear. Stay behind me, he said calmly. Though his pulse roared in his ears, the guards lunged, their movements fast as lightning. Elias blocked the first strike, the shock traveling through his arm. The second guard swung, but Lyra raised her hand. Her scars flared with blinding white light. The guard froze mid-air, his armor cracking as if crushed by invisible force. Elias stared in awe as she released him, her body trembling, the light fading from her skin. The other guards stepped back, fear flickering in their alien eyes. Impossible, one muttered. The Queen said her power was gone. Lyra's breathing grew heavy. Leave now, or your hearts will stop. The guards retreated, vanishing into the tunnels. Elias rushed to her side. Are you hurt? Lyra shook her head weakly. I used too much energy. Her eyes glowed faintly, her voice soft. Now she will know. My mother will sense it. Elias helped her sit against the wall, his hand brushing hers. Her skin was warm, pulsing faintly with light. He said quietly, You saved my life. Lyra looked at him, eyes full of confusion and sorrow. I didn't mean to show you. But you needed to know who I am. He asked, Who are you, Lyra? Her voice broke. The one my mother fears most. They left the hidden chamber before the Queen's hunters could return. But by the time they reached the palace courtyard, the air itself seemed different, tense. Alive with invisible danger, Lyra could feel it in her bones. The way the palace hummed like a living thing when the Queen was angry. Go back to your quarters, she whispered. She must not see us together. Elias refused. If she blames you for helping me, She hurt you, Lyra smiled sadly. She already does, human. Every time she looks at me. That night, the queen stood before her mirror of shadows. Watching the recordings of Lyra's power, her reflection twisted with fury. So the light still lives within her, she hissed. Her advisor bowed low. Shall we eliminate the human? The queen's lips curved in a cruel smile. No, not yet. We will break her heart first. Let her see her chosen one fall. Back in her room, Lyra sat alone beside the window, her hands trembling as faint trails of light drifted from her fingertips. She whispered to herself, he should never have chosen me. He doesn't know what it will cost him. Outside, the alien moons cast a pale glow across the city of glass, and from deep within the palace walls, the queen's eyes glimmered in the darkness. A war had begun, not between worlds, but between hearts, one ruled by love, the other by fear, and far away, Elias lay awake, unaware that by morning, the queen would summon him before the alien council, not to honor him, but to destroy him. The storm had started to gather, and neither of them could stop it now. The next morning broke heavy and gray. The alien sky hung low with storm clouds that glowed violet from the rising suns. Elias was awakened by the crash of armored feet outside his chamber. Before he could speak, the door burst open, and royal guards poured in, their weapons humming with cold blue energy. You are ordered to stand before the queen, one said, his voice flat and merciless. Elias tried to ask what crime he was accused of, but they gave no answer. They bound his wrists with glowing cuffs that burned against his skin, pulling him through the shining corridors. Servants and nobles stopped to stare as he passed, their whispers like knives. The human dared to touch her, one muttered. They say he corrupted the queen's bloodline, another said. Elias kept walking, silent, his eyes hard. The throne hall loomed ahead, more crowded than he had ever seen it. Hundreds of aliens stood in semicircles around the crystal floor, their eyes reflecting the light of judgment. At the center sat the queen, dressed in armor of living silver, her crown pulsing faintly with power. Beside her stood Lyra, her head bowed, her wrists bound by the same blue light. Elias's heart twisted at the sight. The queen rose slowly, her voice echoing like thunder. Human Elias, she said, each word sharp as ice. You stand accused of defiling our laws, of spreading corruption among my daughters, and of awakening Forbidden's power within my bloodline. The hall filled with murmurs, the crowd eager for punishment. Elias looked up at her calmly. I only defended her when you humiliated her. The queen's eyes narrowed. You dare to speak of defense? You polluted her mind with human pity. Lyra stepped forward, her voice trembling. Mother, please, it wasn't his fault. The queen raised her hand sharply, a beam of energy striking the floor between them. Silence, child, she hissed. You have already shamed our family. Lyra fell quiet, tears shimmering in her eyes. Elias clenched his fists, fury boiling beneath his calm. She is not your shame. She is your daughter, the court gasped. No one had ever spoken to the queen that way. The queen's expression darkened. Then you shall learn what happens to those who challenge me. She gestured toward the floor, and a holographic image appeared, the recording from the hidden chamber, showing Lyra using her Forbidden's light. The crowd erupted in shock and fear. Monster, someone shouted. Abomination, cried another. Lyra took a step back, shaking. The queen turned to her court. You see? He awakens the old curse. He makes her dangerous. Elias tried to speak, but a guard struck him across the back, forcing him to his knees. Stop, Lyra cried, struggling against her chains, but the queen's energy field held her in place. The queen's voice grew calm again, coldly calm. For your crimes, human, you will be sent to the lower chambers, never to see light again. She turned to her daughter. And you, my failed creation, will be purified, your emotions erased, your light sealed forever. No, Lyra screamed, the sound raw and desperate. Her power flared again for a heartbeat, the chains glowing white, cracking slightly before the guards reinforced them. The queen's fury returned in full. Enough, she shouted. Take him away. As they dragged Elias toward the dungeon doors, Lyra shouted his name again and again. He looked back once, his voice steady even through the pain. Don't let her make you forget who you are. Those words echoed in the great hall, reaching every ear. Even the queen's expression faltered for the briefest moment, then hardened again like stone. The dungeon beneath the palace was a place of endless echoes and flickering light. They threw Elias into a narrow cell, carved into rock that pulsed with alien energy. The cuffs vanished, leaving faint burns on his wrists. He sat on the cold floor, breathing hard, his mind racing with worry for Lyra. In the distance, he could hear faint cries and the metallic hiss of machines. Hours passed before someone came, not a guard, but a thin, gray-skinned alien with tired eyes. The stranger whispered, "You should not be here." "Human," Elias frowned. "Then why help me?" The old alien smiled sadly. "Because I once served the queen, and I have seen what she does to those she fears." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "The light within her daughter, it is the true gift of our race. The power of empathy and creation. Long before the queen twisted it into tyranny." Elias listened in silence, every word cutting deeper. The old alien continued, "If she kills the girl, that power will die with her, and our world will die too." Suddenly, a tremor shook the floor, dust falling from the ceiling. A guard's voice shouted from above, "Containment breach in the lower vaults." The old alien smiled faintly. "Your moment has come, human. She will find you soon. Run when you can." Before Elias could answer, the cell door burst open. Lyra stood there, pale and trembling, her chains broken, her eyes burning with light. "I told you I wouldn't let them hurt you," she said, her voice soft but fierce. He stared at her, stunned. "How did you—" "No time," she whispered, pulling him by the hand. "The guards are coming." They ran through narrow tunnels, guided by the light glowing faintly from her hands. The palace above shook as alarms rang through the walls. Behind them, voices shouted orders. "Seal the exits. Find them both." They reached a heavy door that led to the surface, the same hidden path Lyra had shown him days ago. Outside, the alien night burned with twin moons and silver mist. Lyra stopped to catch her breath, her face streaked with tears and dust. Elias turned to her. "You risked everything for me." She shook her head. "You gave me something to believe in." From the distance came the sound of pursuing ships, their lights flashing through the clouds. Elias grabbed her hand tighter. "Where do we go?" Lyra looked toward the glowing horizon, her eyes filled with determination. "To the forest," she said. "The place the queen fears most, where the truth still sleeps." And as they ran into the night, the queen's furious voice echoed through the communication towers of her empire. "Find them, bring me my daughter's heart, and burn the human alive." But neither Elias nor Lyra looked back. For the first time, she was free, and for the first time, he understood that this was no longer just survival. It was the beginning of rebellion, the start of a story that would change both their worlds. The twin moons of Velara hung over the horizon like silver eyes, watching as Elias and Lyra fled into the endless forest that surrounded the queen's shining city. Every step they took left faint trails of light in the soil, as if the ground itself remembered Lyra's power. The trees were unlike anything on earth, tall and translucent, their trunks pulsing faintly with a heartbeat that echoed through the air. Strange voices whispered in the wind, not words but memories. echoes of the dead who once walked this world. Elias followed close behind Lyra, his breath sharp in the cold alien air. He could hear the faint hum of pursuit ships far behind them, cutting through the sky like blades of light. Lyra moved faster than he expected, her robe torn, her bare feet silent on the glowing Nos. She whispered without looking back. "The Queen will track us through the energy field. We have to reach the ancient ruins before sunrise." They climbed down a slope covered in blue ferns that moved like living creatures. Elias stumbled, his foot catching on a root. But Lyra turned quickly, catching his hand before he fell. For a moment their eyes met. The glow of the forest reflected in both. Her voice softened. "You humans are so fragile," he smiled, breathless. "And yet, I'm still here." As dawn began to break, the forest opened into a vast clearing filled with stone pillars. Each pillar was carved with symbols glowing faintly beneath layers of dust. Lyra knelt beside one, running her fingers across the alien marks. "This place," she whispered, "is where the first of my kind were born. Long before the Queen's empire, before she made us forget who we were, Elias walked among the ruins, tracing his hand along a cracked mural. He froze when he saw the image carved into the stone. It showed a human and an alien standing together, hands joined, light flowing between them. Beneath the carving, ancient letters spelled out a message in both languages. "Two worlds, one heart." Elias turned to Lyra, disbelief in his voice. "Your people and mine once stood together." Lyra nodded. "Yes, the Queen buried this truth. She feared it. She wanted no weakness, no love, only power." A deep rumble shook the ground beneath them. Dust falling from the ancient stones, Lyra looked up, her eyes wide. "She found us." Above the trees, bright blue lights appeared, small fighter drones circling the sky. Scanning the forest below, Elias grabbed her hand. "We have to move." Lyra hesitated, her voice shaking. "If we run, they'll destroy everything here. These ruins are proof of what we were. I can't let her erase them again." She stepped forward, placing both hands on a glowing stone. Her scars began to shine with fierce white light. The forest trembled as energy surged through the air. The drones above paused, their systems flickering, then crashed into the ground one by one. Elias shielded his eyes from the brightness. "Lyra, stop. You'll kill yourself." But she didn't stop, not until the light burst outward in a shockwave that sent the air rippling for miles. When it was over, she collapsed to her knees. Breathing hard, Elias ran to her, lifting her gently. "You did it." "They're gone." Lyra shook her head weakly. "No, they're just delayed. The Queen will come herself now." Elias frowned. "Then we'll be ready for her." Lyra looked up, her voice barely a whisper. "You don't understand. When she arrives, she'll destroy everything, even you." Elias set her down against a stone pillar. Brushing a strand of hair from her face, he said quietly, "If I die protecting what's right, that's enough." She looked at him, eyes filled with pain and wonder. "You speak like the ones in the old stories." He smiled faintly. "Maybe I read too many of them." A faint hum filled the air again. This time deeper, darker, the sky above turned blood red. Clouds twisting as a massive ship descended, the Queen's flagship, carved from black crystal and surrounded by lightning. Tore through the sky, Lyra's body tensed, her light flickering. "She's here." The ship landed with a roar that shook the forest to its roots. Dozens of armored guards stepped out, their eyes glowing, weapons ready. The Queen herself emerged last, her silver armor shining, her expression calm and terrible. She looked around the ruins, disgust curling her lips. "So this is where the lies of compassion were born," she said. Her gaze fell on Lyra. "And now they will end with you." Elias stepped in front of her. weapon drawn, though he knew it was useless. The queen tilted her head, almost amused. "Still playing hero, human?" He replied firmly, "No, just doing what's right." Her smile faded. "Then die with her." The guards raised their weapons. Blue energy crackling through the air. Before they could fire, Lyra rose. Light exploding from her hands, brighter than ever before. The energy hit the guards like a wave, throwing them back, their armor shattering. But the queen did not move, her own aura flaring in answer, cold and violet. The air between them tore apart as light and darkness collided. Elias staggered backward from the force. Shouting her name, Lyra stood firm, her entire body glowing like a star. The queen laughed over the roar of energy. "You can't defeat me, child. You are a fragment of me." Lyra's voice rang out, steady and full of fire. "Then I'll destroy the part of you that made me." The ground split beneath them, the ruins lighting up like a circuit awakening after ages of sleep. Elias fell to his knees, shielding his face from the blinding light. When it cleared, Lyra and the queen were both gone, vanished into the heart of the storm. Only silence remained, the forest whispering in sorrow. Elias called her name again and again, but no answer came. He fell to the ground beside the shattered pillars, whispering, "Lyra, please." Then faintly, from deep within the forest, a voice answered, "I'm here." Elias turned, hope flaring, but before he could move, a shadow passed overhead, a drone escaping into the night, carrying a transmission to the Queen's capital. The war was not over, not yet, and somewhere far above the clouds, the Queen's voice whispered through the static, "If she thinks she can run from me, she'll learn that even light casts a shadow." The air above the ruins crackled with strange light. The forest trembled like it was alive, and the sky split open with thunder that glowed blue. Elias ran toward the voice that had called his name, his feet slipping on the glowing soil, his heart pounding so hard it hurt. From the shadows beneath the broken pillars, Lyra stepped out, her body covered in faint burns of light, her eyes glowing dimly. She looked weaker than before. But she was alive. Elias rushed to her. Catching her as she stumbled, she whispered, "She's not gone. She's inside the storm." Elias looked up, and through the swirling clouds above, he saw a massive shape twisting like smoke, the Queen's energy form. Descending from her flagship, her voice rolled across the forest, deep and echoing, "You cannot hide from me. My daughter, not in the dark, not in the light." Lyra's breath shuddered. "She's merging with the old energy, using the ancient source under the ruins." Elias frowned. "Then we stop her before she becomes unstoppable." Lyra shook her head weakly. "You don't understand. She isn't just power anymore. She's the whole system that binds our people. Destroy her and the empire collapses." Elias gritted his teeth. "Then maybe it's time it did." The ground shook violently as the Queen's form began to solidify. Her armor grew from light, her hair a flowing crown of black flame. Her feet touched the ground, and the air froze around her. She looked at Lyra with a strange kind of sadness. "You could have been perfect, child. You could have ruled beside me. But you chose weakness." Lyra's voice cracked. "You call it weakness. I call it feeling." The Queen's smile faded. "Feeling is what destroyed our kind." Elias stepped forward. "No, tyranny did that." Her eyes turned to him, filled with disgust. "Human, your species is a virus of emotion, spreading chaos wherever it goes." Elias replied calmly. "Maybe, but it also brings life." The Queen raised her hand, and a pulse of energy struck the ground, sending him flying backward. He hit a broken stone and gasped. His vision spinning, Lyra screamed, her power flaring in panic, light pouring from her hands like fire. The Queen advanced, her steps slow and graceful. "You still protect him?" Even after he drags you into ruin? Lyra's voice trembled, but didn't break. He taught me what you never could, compassion. The queen's power surged again. Tendrils of violet energy wrapping around Lyra, lifting her into the air. Lyra screamed, her body twisting in pain as the queen's voice grew colder. I will strip it from you. I will erase the infection. Elias forced himself up, every muscle screaming. He saw Lyra suspended in the light, the energy eating away at her, her glow flickering like a dying star. He picked up a shard of the glowing pillar beside him, a fragment of the ancient stone marked with both human and alien symbols. He could feel the same pulse inside it that he had felt in Lyra. The energy of connection. He whispered to himself, if love is her weakness, maybe it's also her weapon. He charged forward through the storm of light, shouting her name, Lyra. Her eyes fluttered open, and the moment their eyes met, the queen turned, fury exploding across her face. You dare interrupt destiny? She hissed, sending a wave of power toward him. But Elias didn't stop. He leapt into the air, pressing the glowing shard to Lyra's hand. The shard flared, fusing with her skin. The energy around them exploded. Light and shadow tangled together in a whirl of chaos. The forest itself screaming with the force. Lyra's body glowed brighter, her scars vanishing, her eyes turning completely white with power. The queen staggered back, her armor cracking, her voice shaking for the first time. What have you done? Lyra floated down slowly, her feet touching the ground, her voice echoing with both fear and strength. You tried to erase what makes us alive, but I've become it. The queen struck again, but Lyra raised her hand and stopped the attack mid-air. The energy dissolving like dust, Elias stood behind her. Shielding his eyes from the glow, Lyra turned her palm toward her mother. Releasing a beam of pure light, the queen screamed, her body splitting into fragments of shadow and light, her voice echoing, You will destroy us all. Lyra's tears streamed down her face as she whispered, Maybe we need to be broken before we can heal. The beam spread through the ruins, lighting up every pillar, every carving. The ancient energy awakened fully, filling the forest with sound, not thunder, but music. The queen's form disintegrated into dust that shimmered in the air. Fading into the wind, Lyra fell to her knees, gasping. Her light dimming again, Elias ran to her, catching her as she collapsed, her body weak but alive. It's over, he whispered. She shook her head faintly. No, it's beginning. She's gone, but her influence remains. Her soldiers will come. Her systems will fight. Elias looked into her pale eyes. Then we'll fight them together. She smiled faintly, leaning her forehead against his. You're foolish, human, he smiled back. And you love that. Her laugh was soft. Tired, full of warmth, above them, the storm began to fade. Sunlight breaking through for the first time in years. The forest breathed again, its glow turning golden. The ancient carvings pulsed once more before going still. As if bowing to their courage, Elias lifted Lyra carefully, carrying her toward the edge of the ruins. She whispered, She was my mother, he replied. And you were her redemption. As they reached the open ridge, the first rays of dawn broke across the alien sky. Behind them, the Queen's great ship exploded in silence, its power core collapsing, sending a wave of light across the horizon. The empire trembled, every city feeling the shock of its ruler's fall. But in the quiet of the forest, only two figures remained, bound by something far stronger than command, trust. Lyra looked at him one last time before closing her eyes, whispering, Don't let them turn you cold. Elias? He held her tighter, his voice low. Never. And as the light faded, the planet itself seemed to sigh, as if relieved that, for once, compassion had won. yet far above in orbit. In the debris of the Queen's ship, a small fragment of her crown still glowed faintly. Inside the light, her voice whispered like a curse carried by the wind. The battle may be lost, but the war for their hearts has only begun. The first light of dawn spilled over the alien forest. Washing away the colors of war, the ruins shimmered faintly. The air still smelled of energy and smoke. Elias sat beside Lyra's still form, her breathing soft but shallow, her face peaceful. Her silver hair spread across the glowing moss like threads of light. He had carried her from the ruins to a small clearing, where the golden mist curled between the trees. For the first time since he had come to this world, there was silence, no alarms, no shouts, no orders, only the sound of two hearts trying to remember peace. He looked up at the alien sky, its twin suns climbing slowly, the color shifting from red to gold. The Queen was gone, her ship destroyed, her army scattered, but her empire still lived like a wound that refused to close. Elias knew this peace would not last. The soldiers of Velara would soon come, and when they did, they would see him not as a savior, but as the human who killed their queen. Lyra stirred, her fingers twitching. The faint light under her skin pulsed again. Elias leaned closer, his voice low. "Lyra, can you hear me?" Her lips moved, her voice weak. "You stayed," he smiled softly. "I told you I wouldn't leave." She tried to sit up, but pain shot through her body. The light around her flickered like a candle in the wind. "Don't move," he said. "You're still healing." She shook her head, her eyes opening wider. "No, Elias, it's not over." "She's not gone." Before he could answer, the ground trembled faintly. The forest lights dimmed from the horizon. Strange dark shapes began to rise, floating ships without pilots, moving like living machines, their hulls cracked but still alive. "The Queen's fleet," Lyra whispered, her voice full of fear. She tied her will to them. "She's still inside." Elias clenched his fists. "Then we end her again." Lyra looked at him sadly. "You can't fight her this way. She's energy now, part of the system that runs this world." He thought for a moment, his mind racing. "Then we break the system." Lyra reached for his hand, her fingers glowing faintly. "If I connect to her network, I might be able to stop it, but it will drain me completely." Elias shook his head. "No, you're barely alive," she smiled weakly. "Maybe I was never meant to live long. Maybe I was meant to finish what she started." He grabbed her shoulders, his voice trembling. "Don't say that. You're not her shadow. You're her light." She looked into his eyes for a long moment, the golden light of sunrise reflected in both. Then she nodded slowly. "Then let's finish it together." They climbed a small ridge overlooking the ruins, the Queen's ships circling above like vultures of metal. Lyra stood in the center of the clearing, her hands raised, her light spreading outward in thin lines that reached the ground. The earth responded. Symbols began to glow, ancient circuits awakening beneath their feet. Elias could feel the vibration deep in his bones, the world itself breathing again. From the sky came a thunderous voice, familiar and cold. "You cannot erase me, daughter. I am the blood in your veins." Lyra closed her eyes, her light growing brighter. "Then I will purify that blood." The ships fired beams of blue energy toward the ground. The forest exploded in light, but Lyra's power rose to meet it, creating a dome of shimmering force. Elias stood beside her, shielding her from the fragments of burning metal, shouting above the noise, "You're holding back. You can do more." Lyra shook her head, tears in her eyes. "If I give everything, I won't survive." He looked at her, his voice steady. "Then I'll carry your light." He stepped forward, placing his hands over hers. The energy between them exploded like a supernova. The light spread through both of them, fusing human and alien power, emotion and logic, heart and mind. The Queen's voice screamed across the sky. "You dare to merge with him? You betray your kind," Lyra shouted back, her voice breaking but fierce. "No. I free them." A blinding column of light erupted from the forest, shooting into the sky, piercing the fleet, one by one. The ships froze mid-air, then shattered into dust that rained down like falling stars. The Queen's voice faded, her last words a whisper. "You cannot build peace from ruin." Lyra's reply came soft and strong. "Watch me." When the light faded, the world was silent again. Elias opened his eyes slowly, his body numb, his vision blurred. He saw Lyra lying beside him, her body glowing faintly, her breathing shallow. He crawled to her, holding her close, whispering, "You did it." She smiled weakly. "No, we did." He shook his head, tears slipping down his face. "Stay with me, Lyra. Please." Her fingers brushed his cheek, her touch warm. "Promise me you'll teach them, your people." "My people? That love is not weakness." "I promise," he said, his voice breaking. Her smile deepened, her eyes slowly closing. "Then maybe I can rest." A soft wind blew through the clearing, carrying 1,000 glowing petals into the air. Her body dissolved into light, drifting upward toward the twin suns. Fading into the dawn, Elias fell to his knees, staring at the empty space where she had been. But as the first rays of sunlight touched the ruins, the symbols on the ground glowed again, forming her name, Lyra. And from the horizon came the sound of approaching ships. Not warships, but transports carrying alien survivors, their lights white instead of blue. The first to land was a young alien officer who knelt before Elias, her voice trembling. "She spoke to us before she vanished. She told us to follow you." Elias stood slowly, still staring at the rising sun. "Then we rebuild, not as masters and slaves, but as equals." The officer bowed, and the others followed. The forest shimmered again, alive with new energy. Elias looked up at the sky one last time and whispered, "You were never ugly, Lyra. They just couldn't see you." As the camera would fade for the audience, the world of Velara would begin to heal, the broken towers regrowing like living stone, the light spreading across the horizon. A human voice would speak softly through the silence. He chose the one everyone laughed at, and changed 2 worlds forever. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to HFY Sci-Fi, where every story reminds us, sometimes, the smallest act of love can rewrite an entire universe.